Hello everyone, and welcome to part 7 of Victory Garden for Maine, brought to you by the University of Maine Cooperative Extension. My name is Marjorie, and with me today are Allison, Cara, and Becca. In this video, we'll be discussing what you need to know to figure out what's wrong with your plant. Becca, you have our first question?
I have trouble growing at least one thing in my garden every year. Sometimes it's tomatoes, sometimes it's carrots, sometimes it's a lot of things. I think my soil could be diseased. What do you think?
There can be a lot of reasons why plants do poorly in the garden, and certainly plant diseases can be one of them. But other things could be going on too. It could be frost damage, herbicide damage, or a nutrient deficiency. It could also be something like poor quality seed or transplants, incorrect planting time or planting depth, or some other management aspect.
It sounds like there's a lot that can go wrong in my garden. How do I figure out what the cause could be?
We are here to help if you can't figure out what is wrong with your plant. You can contact your county extension office and then they can direct you to the best person to help you. For example, Extension has a plant disease diagnostic lab to help with disease diagnosis, and I oversee that lab. I'll give instructions about sending samples at the end of the video.
It's good to be in the habit of checking your garden often to make sure that if a problem does develop, you can catch it early. If you start to see a problem, think about your site, examine your plant materials, and think about what's happened up until now. Maybe your site is too wet or too dry, and what has the weather been like? Make note of the symptoms. Where are they on the plant and where are they in the garden? Particularly, what types of plants are you seeing symptoms on? Are they spreading or are they staying the same? These can all be clues for you. Many, but not all plant diseases affect just a few species. So if you're seeing symptoms across a lot of different types of plants, that suggests that something else may be happening. It could be a problem like insufficient drainage or not enough water, a nutrient deficiency, or some temperature extremes. It could also point to a soil-borne disease, some of which have very broad host ranges, which means that it affects a lot of different species or types of plants.
Some of the seedlings I started at home in containers died. They flopped over right at the soil line. What causes that?
When young seedlings die and fall over at the soil line, that is most likely due to damping off, which can be caused by a few different organisms that live in the soil. To limit this disease, do not overwater your seedlings by making sure the water is able to drain from the container. Growing the seedlings in a warm area will reduce disease, since most fungal diseases prefer cool, wet conditions. Ideally, seedlings should be grown between a soil temperature between 70 to 75 degrees, and it can help to have a warming mat under them. Clean your seedling trays if you plan to use them next year to limit the odds of getting a disease to carry over to the next year's seedlings.
I'll admit, it never occurred to me to clean my seedling trays. How would I do that? And is there anything else that I should be cleaning?
First, you want to get all the soil off the trays and rinse them with water. Then you'll make a solution that has 1 part bleach for 9 parts of water. Soak the trays in this 10% bleach solution for about 15 minutes. Rinse them, air dry them, and put them aside for next year. Cutting tools should also be sanitized so that you're not spreading a disease with every cut. Since cutting tools are metal, you don't want to sanitize them with bleach. Instead, you'll use a 70% rubbing alcohol solution. This is what you can get at the local pharmacy. You can dip your tools directly into the alcohol, or you can use a spray bottle to coat them. Be sure to clean them regularly.
Shortly after I planted my healthy plants, they all started to turn color. The leaves became white on some and purple on others. Do you have any idea why this happened?
This sounds like an environmental issue rather than a disease organism. If there is a cold snap just after you've transplanted, that can cause problems with seedlings. Newly developed plant parts are tender and can be more susceptible to cold damage. That can show up as purpling coloration on the plants. If the damage is mild, most plants will outgrow some cold damage. The white spots on the leaves are most likely due to harsh sun on the leaves and the plant not being used to it. This is why we recommend seedlings are hardened off.
Can you remind me what hardening off means?
Hardening off is when you slowly transition your plants from growing conditions indoors to the growing conditions that they'll face outdoors. Over the course of a week or more, take your seedlings outside and gradually expose them to more sun, wind, and temperature variations.
Last year, my squash plants had something white all over the leaves, and then the squashes themselves didn't last very long when I tried to store them. What do you think was wrong with my plant?
This is a very common fungal disease called powdery mildew. It is usually found on cucurbit plants like pumpkins, cucumbers, and squash. The symptoms are white leaves that resemble powdered sugar on them that rubs off. Other plants also get this disease, like lilac and ninebark, but are a different species. So if you have powdery mildew on those plants, they will not cause a problem on your cucurbit. The best way to manage this disease is to select cucurbit varieties with resistance or tolerance to this disease. Check the catalog or seed packet for disease-resistant information before you buy. This disease is usually seen in mid to late summer, and storage quality is reduced when the plant has this disease. Cucurbits can get another disease called downy mildew, but that has different symptoms.
So if I don't have resistant squash varieties, what can I do to avoid powdery mildew?
Powdery mildew needs high humidity to become an issue. Planting your plants farther apart will allow for good air circulation, which will help reduce powdery mildew. It's also important to have healthy plants with the right amount of nutrients provided to them. Powdery mildew is often an issue during dry summers since the disease does not like wet leaves. If you find you do have powdery mildew and you choose to apply a pesticide, you can apply a sulfur product. Organic products can be purchased at your local garden center. Just make sure vegetables are listed on the label.
I don't want to use any pesticides in my garden. How do I keep plant diseases from becoming a problem?
You want to start with proper cultural practices, like proper soil preparation, adequate fertilization, correct spacing of plants, and watering early in the day so the foliage has time to dry. At the end of the season, be sure to clean up all plant debris. Some diseases will overwinter in this plant debris, and that can serve as a source of inoculum to infect plants the following year. And remember, using disease-resistant plants is one of the best ways to minimize plant diseases.
My tomatoes have issues every year. Spots on the leaves, and they never look that good. That has to be blight, right?
Actually, there are a number of diseases that can cause spots on tomato leaves. One of the most common ones is septoria leaf spot. It's a fungal disease that shows up in late summer. It starts as small spots on the lower leaves where there's little airflow and high humidity. Over time, it spreads up the plant. Septoria can overwinter on plant debris in greenhouses, cold frames, and wooden stakes. So those general principles of good airflow, keeping the leaves dry, and sanitation are all really important in managing this disease. Two other possible causes of spots on tomato leaves are early blight and leaf blight. One way to tell these apart from each other is septoria has a white center in the leaf spot, and early blight and late blight do not. Early blight and septoria are diseases we get each year in Maine, and late blight we do not. Late blight can be blown in from other states or become an issue if diseased plants are brought into the state.
Where can I get more information about those diseases and others I think might be a problem?
UMaine Extension has many fact sheets about gardening and about plant pests. These are available online. We also have a website of photographs of plant diseases, sorted by different types of plants. This might help you to identify what's going on in your garden.
So what do I do if I think my plants might have a disease, but I can't identify what it is? You mentioned something about a lab I can send it to?
Many plant diseases are difficult to properly identify just by eye. At the University of Maine Cooperative Extension Plant Disease Diagnostic Lab, we can assist you with disease identification. You can send samples to the lab and we'll perform tests to diagnose the issue and provide management recommendations. Instructions on how to send a sample can be found on the Plant Disease Diagnostic Lab website, along with a form that is required with the plant sample. Remember that getting a proper identification and learning about a pest and how it lives is the first step in managing it. This is always important, but particularly if you are thinking of using a pesticide. You want to be sure you're using the right product at the right time of the problem.
Oh, so what I should have done is just sent you those seedlings that flopped over and died, and you would have confirmed that it was damping off, not something else?
Unfortunately, no. Once a plant has died, other organisms invade the plant material and start decomposing it. These decomposition organisms outcompete the plant disease organism, meaning we can't find the disease organism anymore. So we are unable to work with dead plant material. The best plant sample to send us is an area that is starting to show symptoms. If you have a plant that is dead at the tip and then transitions to unhealthy, then to healthy, the plant disease will be in the transition area. This is the most useful plant part to send to me, since we grow the pathogen from the transition area and then identify it.
Great. I'll keep that in mind this summer. Is there anything else I should know about submitting a sample?
Ideally, you would send the sample early in the week so it doesn't sit too long in a warm place like the post office. That way, it's less likely to rot while in transit. If you're able to overnight a sample to the lab, that's even better.
Wow, this lab sounds like a great resource. But what do I do if I have an insect issue?
The University of Maine Cooperative Extension also has an insect identification lab. So if you have a sample or a photograph, you can send it to them and they can help you identify it. They can tell you if it's a pest or if it's beneficial. If it is a pest, they can give you some hints about how to manage it.
Allison, you must get all kinds of plant samples during the growing season. Are there some things you see that look like disease problems but aren't?
Yes, there are a few things I see frequently that aren't disease problems. One is nutrient deficiencies. They tend to have a particular pattern on the plant. Depending on the nutrient and the plant, we might find symptoms on mostly lower leaves or mostly upper leaves, maybe between the veins or the veins themselves. Often we'll see this problem on all the plants of that species and variety. In contrast, plant diseases usually show up on a few plants first, then, depending on the disease, may spread to other plants. So knowing the pattern of symptoms in the garden and on the plant is very important. If I suspect a nutrient deficiency, I'll recommend that the client start by taking a soil sample. Another issue I see is herbicide damage. In a homeowner situation, the herbicide typically used to kill weeds in lawns will cause broadleaf plants to grow in a twisted and distorted manner. Problems can appear if the homeowner or a neighbor uses a herbicide like this under improper conditions. Then the herbicide may drift over to a different area and damage the broadleaf plants that are there. Tomatoes in particular are very susceptible to drift damage by one of the more common lawn herbicides. Treated grass or hay that is then used as a mulch in the garden can also be a source of this problem. Finally, manure or compost manure from animals that ate grass from treated pastures or hay fields might still contain some herbicide residue. However, this long-lasting problem is not very common now.
So to recap, some simple practices can help reduce the likelihood of plant disease problems. These are proper plant spacing, time your planting appropriately, i.e. not too cold, water early in the day, water at the base of plants, grow disease-resistant varieties, remove diseased plant material as soon as possible. Remember that there can be a number of factors that can cause plant problems, and plant diseases are one of them. Look at your plants often to catch a problem early. Fact sheets are available on common issues of vegetable plants. Reach out to your local county cooperative extension office or the Plant Disease Diagnostic Lab for disease issues and the Insect ID Lab for insect issues. More information is available on UMaine Cooperative Extension's website and in the video description. Please be sure to check out our next video, What to Do with Your Harvest.